So hi, this is Kevin Gormley. I'm a CPA that does financial planning, and today I'd like to tell you a story or a parable, and it's based off of a story that was in the Investor Manifesto from William Bernstein, who's one of my heroes in investing. And his story concerns a crow, mine concerns a wizard. So here goes. It's January 1st, 1999. You're walking down the street, and all of a sudden a wizard approaches you and taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hold on, I have news for you." And the wizard is beautiful flowing beard, beautiful clothes like any wizard would have, very wizardly outfit. And the wizard says to you, "I know what's going to happen over the next 10 years. And you say, "With what?" And he says, "With the stock markets. The markets are going to crash not once, but twice over the next 10 years. And you say, "All right, I'll humor you. Tell me." And he says, "Well, the first will be caused by a tech bubble." And he said, "People will continue to buy until everyone is throwing their money at the market, and then the market will crash down." And you say, "Okay, well, I've heard a little bit about this forming tech bubble. They've talked about it on TV." And he says the second one will be even worse. It will be the worst crash since the Great Depression. And the market will go down 37% in 1 year, the stock market. And banks will be at the brink of failure. Insurance companies may not be able to pay their claims. People are unemployed like crazy. People are feeling like possibly it's the end of America. And he says, "I just needed to warn you." So he starts to walk away, and you say, Wizard, hold on. When's all this going to happen?" And he says, "My magic ain't that good. I have no idea when it's going to happen." So he leaves. And so you start to ponder a little bit. What should I do? Well, you make a decision that the wizard really seemed to be sure of what was going to happen. So you pulled all your money out of all your accounts. And you didn't leave them in the banks even. You pulled it all out, even out of your 401k, and you paid the tax. And you put it all in your safe at home because you can't trust banks in a market calamity. So the next 3 years, as the market continues up, you start to feel like maybe the wizard was insane. But then when the crash comes after the tech bubble finishes, you start to feel really good. And you say, maybe this wizard knew how to predict the future. Then, in 2008, when the credit bubble happens and banks get locked up and the market crashes down 37%, you say, "Hooray! That's one heck of a wizard." And you get down on your knees and you thank God that you had this information, although it wasn't God, it was a wizard who told you what would happen. So you're leaving your house on January 1st, 2009, and there's a gentleman outside. He says, "Can I trouble you for a second?" And he looks a lot, just like a normal person. And you say, "Sure." And he says, "I was visited by the same wizard you were 10 years ago." And you say, "Wow. So you sold all your investments and went to cash?" He goes, "No." You say, "Why not? Wizard told us what was going to happen." He said, "Well, I've heard so many wizards before say that things were going to happen, and I just didn't trust that he was right. And so I diversified my portfolio through 12 different asset classes." And you say, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that. You must have lost a lot of money." And he happens to have, since this is a story or a parable, he happens to have a sheet of his last 10-year returns. And you look at it and you're awestruck. How could this be possible? How could he have made money over the last 10 years with such poor markets? Well, he was diversified in stocks, U.S., international, emerging markets, bonds, REITs. He was diversified across as many asset classes as he could be. He ended up making a good amount of money. So he says, "You went to cash, huh?" And you say, "Yeah." He says, "That's too bad, because the money that you have right now may be the same, but because of 3% inflation, you can only buy 70% of the goods and services that you would have been able to buy 10 years ago." And then he leaves, and he walks away, and you say to yourself, was that a good wizard or a bad wizard? I mean, he gave me information. He knew what was going to happen, but it didn't help me. So what does this mean for us in 2014? Well, first of all, there's always going to be wizards on Wall Street. They're usually dressed in suits, not dressed in a wizard outfit. They continue to make predictions, and if enough of them make predictions, every year some of them are going to be correct. Typically, their timing, no one can tell us when things are going to happen. We know market cycles. We don't know when things are going to happen. And even if we have that information, by moving to cash, we are absolutely going to lose over a 10-year time period. Now, I'm not saying diversification is perfect. You will at times lose money. But Paul Samuelson has said that diversification is one of the only free things in investing. And if you diversify over many asset classes, as that intelligent person did in the parable, things will be a lot better. And hopefully you'll be able to sleep better at night. So hopefully you've learned something from this parable as I did. And I very much appreciate you watching. I'm Kevin Gormley, a CPA that does financial planning. Take care.